Hi, friends. I'm Karen, and this is the Family Food for Moms podcast. We're talking about inspiration for family cooking and dining. Today, we're going to talk about plating techniques made easy for cooks at home and some different ideas for dishes you can serve your courses on, unusual things, and then just how to make it look extra special without a huge amount of hassle to elevate your fancy meal or your tasting menu meal if you're having one. I think it's a lot of fun to try elegant plating, and you don't have to do it every time, but it's certainly fun to do it some of the time. So, starting with a plan is very important. Before placing any food on your dish, on your plate, or on whatever, in whatever dish you're using, what's the star? What's the main ingredient you want to highlight? And think about the balance of colors. Do you have some greens, some bright vegetables, or sauces for contrasting color to lift it so it's not all brown? And then also think of portion sizes. Usually less is more, less than we are used to or accustomed to doing. Leave some empty space on the plate. It adds to the elegance, and somehow it makes it more appetizing. It doesn't feel overwhelming to the person eating it. So when you're choosing your plates or dishes to use, you need to think carefully about what will go with that particular course or ingredient. So using plain white plates is often a good idea because it really makes the food colors pop. But if you do use a different color or texture, then think carefully about how it will work and how it will look. Pick the right size of plate. You don't want it too big and then your plate looks empty, or too small and your plate looks crowded. And then shape matters. Classic looks, round plates. Then modern would be square, unusual shapes. So choosing your plates carefully is an important second step. Then thirdly, think about what tools you can use that are easy to set up at home. So if there's items that are hard to place and you don't want to drop them in, you could use tongs or chopsticks to place them on the plate. Big spoons are great for swishes or sauce smears or dots. Although your dots won't be as precise, if you want precise dots, then a squeeze bottle works well, or even a plastic bag with a corner cut off like you would do for piping icing. That works well for putting sauces on the plate. And then ring molds work well, those metal ring molds, or just cookie cutters sometimes for stacking rice and mashed potatoes. So sometimes if you have a few items like protein and a vegetable or a starch, then layer and stack. So number 5, layer and stack your ingredients, your items, gives your dish height and depth. Stack your proteins on the top of the grains or the vegetables. You can lean some things against each other if they're small. So use your mashed vegetables or purees as a base, or smear the puree on the side. Use your grains like rice as the base, and then put something on top like the sauce draped over the edge, or some little microgreens for extra height, something like that. Number 6, add a focus point. So the main item perhaps slightly off center, and then the other things lift it or point towards it. The sauce draping off or off the edge of it often highlights that particular ingredient. And then number 7, add your sauce with style. So drizzling with a spoon, you can zigzag it on the plate, dabbing it in a curve or a line, swishing it out with your puree using the back of the spoon, or press and swipe. There's lots of things you can do with the sauces. little dots with the squeeze bottle around the edge, like single dots in between, and then placing little colorful items in a pattern on the side of the plate separate to the main part of the dish. So number 8, think color and texture. So contrast is key. So we've mentioned already the color, something that pops on the white plate, red cherry tomatoes, chopped herbs, little tiny onions, and then dabs of sauce that are brightly colored. And then add something crunchy like toasted nuts or sprinkled ground up croutons, something that brings that nice contrast to the texture. Number 9, garnish in a way that's smart and elegant, not just too much. So a tiny little bit of microgreens, a little bit of citrus zest, lemon or orange zest, some finely chopped herbs, a couple of slices of orange, perhaps sliced chilies, just one or two elements very slightly. Minimal works, not too much. And number 10, always clean your plate. Wipe the edges before serving just to make sure there's no smudges on the edge. Everything that's there should be there. You don't want anything there by accident. Then what about some ways to dish up or items to use that are unusual? Your dishes and plates and glass jars can be different, and you can use things that you wouldn't expect to use for serving food. So unusual ways to serve small courses. So large soup spoons, Chinese soup ladles, tasting spoons, anything that's big enough to then serve a single bite on. So you could have a small side plate with a large spoon and your little bite of food inside the spoon, like a little bit of tuna salad or mousse, some little roasted potatoes with a bit of sauce drizzled over, a couple of tiny pieces of steak. All kinds of things can go on the spoon. It'll be a very tiny amount. So do you remember the first course, the amuse boucher, which means the amusement, the course that amuses you? It's just a tiny little starter, canapé style starters. Then things like little tiles or marble boards you can buy, which work well for cheese or charcuterie or plated desserts. And on slate, you can write in chalk, which is very cool. So you could label what the course is. Another idea is any glass jars or glasses. So you can use tiny mason jars to serve something in. You could use a little side plate and a tiny mason jar, and then they tip the salad out of the jar when they're ready to eat it. You can use little shot glasses for tiny portions of soup, especially cold soup, or a layered dip in something like a small glass jar. So the gazpacho, the cucumber yogurt soup, anything that you want a tiny little portion of. We've got lovely little white, what are they called? Bowls with handles. They're the shape of a fondue pot, but they're small and white, so they're great for putting sauces in to dip in, or putting olive oil and balsamic in, or a tiny little bit of soup, a little bit of crab salad. Then hollowed out citrus is always lovely, especially to serve a jelly or something in that. So if we cut the big orange in half and then you create the jelly and let it set in the mold, the half orange mold, and then cut it in half, and then you've got a quarter slice with the jelly inside. You can do custards and mousses in that kind of citrus, or sorbet. Then any tiny little containers that you have, like we said before, shot glasses, you can use those to serve your palate cleanser, which is a tiny bit of sorbet. So you would use an ice cream scoop, a very small one, and scoop a little bit of sorbet and put it into the little shot glass, and then put a slice of lemon in it or something that looks elegant. You can serve on small wooden cutting boards. Often picnic sets have cute little cheese boards that you could maybe use to serve on. Small bites like crostini or little mini sliders, some kind of toasted bread. Large oyster or clam shells are great to serve on with a dollop of something. And then you even get those mini cast iron skillets or mini baking dishes, which are great for an individual portion of a hot food, like a little lasagna. And the bonus, it keeps your food warm. So those are fun. And then if you are serving maybe a burger without the bun or some kind of chicken salad, you can use a large cabbage leaf or a large lettuce leaf, butter lettuce, to hold it. So it looks very nice and you can eat it as well. So using lettuce leaves as a serving bowl. And even chilled river stones. You can serve your oyster or your scallop or your single item on top. And then ice beds. Have a flattish bowl or dish with a whole lot of shaved ice or crushed ice inside, and then put your item, your clams or your oysters, if you have those fancy things at home, on top of the ice. A few other unusual ideas. You can do a hanging skewer like they do with empanadas, or a skewer over a glass. So you just take a small, not quite a toothpick size, perhaps a little bigger, and then you put it over your glass, and on it will be something like grilled shrimp or different bits of cheese or fruit cubes in a fruit kebab, grapes, etc. So it's just suspended over the glass and looks elegant. Then on a wooden spoon, you can serve your condiments or your appetizer if you have a mini paddle or spoon. I think I mentioned that at the beginning. And then paper cones or napkin-shaped cones to put a few odd items like a little bit of candy or something like M&Ms. You can put some nuts or some sort of trail mix in an elegant little cone that you've made. Next time on Wednesday, I'm going to talk about some specific food and then give you ideas of how to plate it. But for today, just think about what is doable but still makes it elegant and fun. The most important thing is that you and your family enjoy yourselves doing this. It's not to add to your workload. It's not to make it more complicated at all. So sometimes when you're planning with your kids, as I said in the previous episode, you can draw an idea of how you want it to look on your plate. I'm sure a child would love to try this. So you say, okay, you're going to have a few slices of steak, you're going to have some mashed potato, and you're going to have a few green beans on the side. Now draw an idea for how to plate it, plus some sauce. And then they'll draw it and know how to plate it when it's their turn. One other technique is really fun is using small glass dishes or little dishes that you serve a layered dessert. We like to serve a shrimp cocktail in a glass dish. So you'd put some lettuce on the bottom and then the shrimp and then your sauce on top with a little garnish. If you wanted to use one of these dishes for a dessert, then you can decorate them in advance. And what you do is put some sugar and a tiny bit of food coloring, maybe pink or green, in a bowl. Then you cut a piece of citrus, lemon or orange, a slice or a wedge, and then you use that to go around the top of the glass, just a tiny little rim, the very top of the glass to moisten it. And then that's going to make it slightly sticky, and then you dip it into the sugar and lift it up, and then as it dries, you have your decorated glass and it looks really nice. You can leave out the food coloring, especially if you feel it's going to make a big mess or it's going to make it too wet. You can just use the plain white sugar or the kind of less processed caramel colored sugar. But whatever you use, it looks very elegant and it's great for serving a drink or a dessert. Thanks for listening. I hope you get to try some plating techniques. And then on Wednesday, we'll talk about specific examples of that and of how you can do mocktails elegantly as well.